Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Heather, and today I want to talk about the Nolan Wells case. Quick recap: it happened in Mississippi on the 4th of July this year. A bunch of kids went out on a boat with their friends. Well, I shouldn't say kids, they're in college. They're like 18, 19, 20. I think the oldest maybe was 21. And everybody came back except for one. His name was Nolan Wells. I haven't been able to get this case off my mind since I heard he was missing. I think I heard about it right after the 4th of July, so probably on the 5th. What's crazy is we're almost 2 months out. No one's been arrested, no one's been questioned, no one's been accused formally. And it seems like, I'm just going to be honest, it seems like the state of Mississippi, or at the very least, the town of Ocean Springs, it seems like they're covering up some really shady activity. And it's alarming because without this going viral on social media, we would have never heard anything about it, which makes me wonder how many times they've done this in the past. One thing I think is also really interesting is how some of the people, they've gone on kind of a PR tour about why they didn't do it instead of, as they claim, this is their best friend. This was my best friend that went missing, or not even best friend, even just like a mild acquaintance. I would still be doing everything that I could to help the family figure out what happened. I would be trying to help them track down, okay, who did we last see him with? Who was he hanging out with? What time did we leave? I would just be more forthcoming in all the information that I had to try to get him found so that his family could have some peace of mind. But instead, a group of people have jumped on the defensive, and I think that makes them look guilty more than any evidence so far that we've seen, honestly. So over the weekend, or actually on August 21st, which was Friday, the lawyer of three of the boys that were on the boat or in the group of boats that were hanging out with Nolan Wells on the 4th of July, their attorney, he filed this letter to Al Sharpton, who is representing the family, basically threatening him to retract all of his defamatory statements. But Al Sharpton hasn't said anything defamatory. I just wanted to go through this letter. I haven't read it yet. I wanted to read through it and just kind of comment on some of the things because I've seen a couple other people already talking about they're changing the timeline, which is weird. Like the entire first, it started off, they said they didn't see Nolan after 3. Then they went on all these interviews trying to defend their innocence, and they started saying, oh, we saw him talking to this girl, Katie, and Katie got removed from the picture. Then they said they left at 4. Then they said they left at 4:30. And so it's just, there's been so many inconsistencies. And now this is the first time, this letter is the first time that it's been actually in writing. This group of people is saying their timeline was for the day. So to clarify, the lawyers haven't actually filed a lawsuit. This letter is basically saying retract your statement in 10 days or else. So we'll see what happens. Al Sharpton already responded and said, go for it. So that's where he's coming from. To be completely honest, I think they should go ahead and do it because that's just going to pull out more information than what we have now. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that means that they would have to go on the stand. And I hope that means that the boys would have to go on the stand too. And the other thing that's concerning is I keep hearing that they're trying to get the case taken out of Mississippi and sent to be tried federally. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but didn't Trump just fire a bunch of people in the civil rights department or cancel funding or who knows? So let's read through it. Let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments what you think is going on in this case. So yeah, let's get into the letter. Dear Mr. Sharpton, this firm represents Warren Jackson Morgan. Unless you comply with the demands outlined in this letter, we will imminently be filing suit against you. And then he goes into your defamatory statement. I'm going to be honest, it's kind of hard to even react to this because it's very gaslighty. He basically says, like, in this one part, you dishonored Nolan by using a vigil as a platform to smear his best friends. It's funny how he's trying to point the finger at Al Sharpton as using a vigil as an opportunity to smear the friends when that's actually what the friends have been doing. They have been using their PR campaign as an opportunity to smear Nolan's parents, which is so disgusting to me. Like, how do you think that it's okay to attack a mother that is grieving the loss of her son? Like, that is just straight up evil. Contrary to the multiple lies in your defamatory statements, the truth is that Warren Jacks and or Morgan did not touch Nolan's cell phone or keys on July 4th, 2026. They specifically said in one of those Tatum interviews that I think it was his dad and his mom's best friend when they showed up that they gave the keys and the phone back to them. So even if he didn't physically touch the keys, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have anything to do with it. And he goes on to list like all of these things. They didn't touch the phone. They didn't lie about the phone. They didn't have access to the phone. They didn't breach the phone. They didn't erase anything on the phone. And it's just like putting all this stuff out there is very suspicious, honestly. If I didn't have anything to do with the murder or disappearance of someone, the last thing that would be on my mind is going on podcasts to outline all of the things that I didn't do and that I didn't have a part of. It's like, why are you defending yourself if you're not guilty? I think the wording is also interesting. He says Nolan and his friends spent their time on the island socializing and drinking alcohol. At no time while Warren, Jax, and Morgan were on the island were they alone with Nolan. What does that have to do with anything? Why does it matter if they were alone with him or not? Nobody. Okay. By all accounts, they were on the island. Nolan was at no point in this time alone. Nolan was never in distress, hurt, injured, or in any physical danger in the slightest while Warren, Jackson, Morgan were there. Nolan, just like everyone else on the island, did not have his phone in his pocket the entire day, just the opposite. On the island, it's normal to store your cell phone and electronics on the boat, so it won't be damaged by salt water. Further, the water is so murky that if a phone was dropped, it's almost impossible to retrieve it. Look, I get that. In LA, people go to Lake Havasu, and it looks like a similar kind of place. Like everybody's on boats, everybody's hanging out, and yeah, you leave your boat on the water, because if you drop it, like he said, you won't be able to find it. So that is not far fetched at all that Nolan would have left his phone on the boat. What is strange is that there is audio where you can clearly hear him say, "Give me back my effing phone." So he wanted his phone back and somebody wasn't giving it back to him. We don't know whether it was any of the three boys that this attorney is representing, but that's actually not the point. We just want to know who had his phone at that point and who was he trying to get it back from. He then goes on to say, at approximately 3 p.m., Warren saw Nolan alive and well, wading in the water with a young woman holding each other. Nolan appeared happy and enjoying himself with the young woman who he spent much of the day with, which if this woman is Katie, Katie has already said numerous times that she only saw him for a couple minutes. She wasn't with him the entire day. So there's that. As you well knew when you made your defamatory statements, or should have known if you cared about the truth, Warren Jackson Morgan then left Horn Island with a large group of friends, 27 in the boating party in total, at approximately 4:28 p.m., all while Nolan was alive and well. The 428 departure is also confirmed by numerous witnesses who can also confirm that Nolan decided to remain on the island and did not leave with Warren Jackson Morgan. Nolan did not retrieve his phone from the boat. So this part is interesting because the 428 time has this entire time, 428 has never been the time that they left. They originally said they left around 3. And if I have time, I'll go back, but I'm pretty sure it was on one or even more than one of the Tatum interviews where I think first it was Warren by himself and then it was all three boys together. But they stated multiple times they left at 3, and the last time they saw Nolan was at 3. Now they're putting in writing in this letter in a timeline that they left at 4:28, and I'm curious why. Why are they now changing the timeline? Is it a mistake? Was it a mistake the first time when they said 3? Are they changing the narrative? Either way, I hope they do another interview and keep telling on themselves because I want to know why they changed this to 4:28. The Palm Beach carrying 3 individuals, including Morgan, left first. The Triton carrying 8 individuals, and the Tide Line carrying 16 individuals, including Jax and Warren, departed shortly thereafter. Nolan was not one of the 27 members of the return boating party. However, the departure was not without complication. One of the boats, the Triton, was taking on water due to a defective bilge pump. Multiple people told Nolan to get on the boat, but he wanted to stay on the island with the young woman he was spending the day with. Nolan chose of his own free will and accord to stay on the island and return home later. He was not the only friend to stay later than the larger group. So what's interesting about that is that he does reference the bilge pump issue, which was also mentioned on the CETO call, and we can clearly hear people in the background on that call saying, "Nolan, wake the F up." So if Nolan wasn't on the boat with any of them and they made the CETO call and we can hear it in the audio, then how is it possible that he wasn't on the boat? See, this is the kind of stuff that makes me question the motives and the validity of everything that their attorney is saying because he is contradicting actual facts that we have. Like, we all have ears, We can all listen to the call. It wasn't doctored. It was confirmed by more than one professional to be valid. It was pulled directly from I think it's like MDR website. It's publicly available information. Yeah, you can't really, I don't know. Sounds like a lie to me. At approximately 4:48, a member of the group called Cito due to the bilge pump issue. Below is a picture taken of that individual while on the phone with Cito at 4:48 on July 4th, just off the shore of the island. And then he has a picture of somebody in blue shorts, and it does look like he's on the phone. You can't really see everybody that's on the boat, though. You only see three people. It also says he has a screenshot of the number, says 4:48 outgoing call 10 minutes, which is kind of close to what they've been saying all along, that the Cito call was 8 minutes and some change. That's not horribly off. We'll allow it. Cito ended up not towing the Triton, but instead the group decided the tie line would be best suited to tow it. And then we see another angle of what we had a video for before, where you could see the girl in the red and white striped outfit sitting on the side, and then it does look like they're actually standing in the center of the boat in this angle compared to how it looked in the video that everybody was sharing around last week. Oh, interesting. There's coolers. So you can see there's coolers on the floor. So that's why everybody wasn't standing in that middle part. It took approximately an hour and a half to return to the mainland. Between the Triton and the tie line, there were 24 occupants and 24 witnesses. None of these 24 individuals saw Nolan in either boat, because Nolan was not in either boat. Every one of these witnesses have spoken to authorities and verified that Nolan Wells was not on any of the subject three boats when they returned to the mainland. Later that night, the friend group became alarmed and concerned when they realized none of them had heard from Nolan. By approximately 10 p.m., members of the group, including Warren Jackson Morgan, began contacting mutual friends to locate Nolan. None of them had heard from him or knew his whereabouts. At approximately 11:07, Warren personally telephoned Christine Wells to ask whether Nolan had returned home. Now, this is another thing. Christine, which is Nolan's mom, had been calling his phone pretty much all day looking for her son. She stated in multiple interviews that they were constantly in contact with one another. And when she didn't hear from him for a while, she was basically blowing his phone up trying to find her son. And I think it's interesting that Warren's saying that he finally decided to call Christine around 11 o'clock. But if you had his phone and you saw her calling all day, why didn't you answer the phone and talk to her? That just seems weird to me. Like, if I had one of my friends' phone and I saw their parents, this has actually happened plenty of times. If I was in my friend's house last weekend and her phone was sitting on the table and I see a phone call, I'm going to tell her. And especially if it was like multiple times the same person, their mother is calling over and over and over and over, why wouldn't you pick up the phone and say, hey, Miss Christine, is everything okay? Easy enough. I think that not answering the phone, shady. Not telling her up front that you had the phone when you called her, shady. The first thing that you should have said was, hey, Miss Christine, I've seen that you've been calling. I have Nolan's phone. You didn't do that. Called her and said, oh, have you seen him? But you knew that she hadn't seen him because she was calling his phone all day. So those are the kind of discrepancies that to me look like, I'm not saying that they killed him, but it does look like they are withholding information. They're not being forthcoming with information. They're not trying to help his family find out where he is at this point. Let's continue. 11:07, Warren personally telephoned Christine Wells to ask whether Nolan had returned home. Warren told Christine Nolan did not return with the group, and Christine confirmed he had not returned home. She had not heard from him since the evening of July 3rd. Warren advised her that Nolan's cell phone had remained with the group on their return from the island and was secured in Wyatt Pyron's vehicle. Warren also told Christine he would call the Coast Guard out of an abundance of caution. And he didn't call the Coast Guard. He called like a friend that was connected with the Coast Guard, but he didn't call the actual Coast Guard. So there's also been some discrepancies there. And I also think it's interesting. He's showing in the screenshots outgoing call 11:07, 5 minutes, outgoing call 11:07, 2 minutes, 2 seconds. So maybe she didn't answer the first time. And then he called back and he talked to her for 5 minutes. Moreover, at approximately 11:13, Warren personally contacted the U.S. Coast Guard to report Nolan missing, help get him located. Warren remained on the call for over 20 minutes and provided a full description, what he was wearing, last known whereabouts, what time the friend group left the island, and necessary information to find him. And then there's a screenshot of a 206 number, which I'm assuming is the US Coast Guard, and it says he made the call at 11:13 and it lasted for 21 minutes. And then he also put a screenshot of, like, if you Google US Coast Guard, what number comes up. Next page is a bunch of text messages. It says, "Mind you, Al, while Warren was on the phone with the Coast Guard, he and Christine were constantly exchanging text messages. Starting at 11:15, those texts have already been publicly released by us to members of the media, but for reference here are just a few." Um, the tone, "Mind you, Al," come on now. It's super disrespectful. It's very unprofessional. This lawyer, he reminds me of, I don't know if you guys used to watch like mob movies back in the day. It reminds me of how the actors would talk in the old mob, like not old mob movies, but from like the 80s and 90s. Like Al Pacino, Scarface, Goodfellas, that genre of movie. I personally love all the mob stories. Um, but he reminds me of, like, his cadence and the way that he talks. He reminds me of, he's trying to communicate like one of the made men, like he's protected, he's part of the family. But he doesn't realize that doesn't work in 2026. Like, that was cool back in the 90s, but right now you just look like a bully. And I don't think that bullying the family that lost their son and still has no justice, I don't think that's a good look. Let's read some of the text messages. Christine says, the first text message, it's kind of blurry, so it's hard to see. The first message says, "Warren, where is his car?" That already tells me that she knows something is up. She has reason to believe that she's not being told the full truth and that Warren is keeping things from her. He responds, "At Jax's house." She said, "Where is that? Can you send me the address where you guys launched?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." So here's the thing. It's like pulling teeth. The whole conversation, I'm only 3 text messages in. The whole conversation is very much like she is doing the work of asking every single specific question. When, if you are worried about your friend, I just feel like you should be more forthcoming with all this information. "Hey, Miss Christine, we haven't seen Nolan. We all spent the night at Jax's house. Here's his phone number. Here's his address. Here's his parents' phone numbers. I'm going to call them right now. Should we meet over there?" Like, just zero. There was just like no sense of urgency, no sense of "let me help you," no sense of "we're in this together," no sense of "I'm worried about my best friend." It's just very like, "At Jax's house." "Yes, ma'am." Then she said, "What time was the last time you guys saw him?" He said 3 p.m. Again with the lies, because we later found out, based on this actual letter, that they didn't leave until 4:30. Then she asked, "What was he wearing?" He said, "Black shorts and sunglasses." "Can you call Neva at DMR?" And then he said, "On the phone with Coast Guard. I will call after." "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Thank you so much. We have to file a missing persons report. So one more time, tell me exactly where you last saw him. I'm so sorry. I'm asking you to repeat this." She should not. I just hate that he put her in this situation, to where she's even trying to check her tone to not be too interrogatory when she shouldn't have to do that. Like, she's looking for her son. I can't even imagine what was going through her mind at this point. And I think that's why this case has just been like haunting me for the past month and a half, because as a mom to a Black son, I always think about my son when he's not with me. And I hope that the friends that he continues to make as he gets older are real friends. And this text exchange, these are not real friends. And I really, really, really wish that everyone would stop calling them his friends. These are not his friends. This is not how friends behave. He said 3 p.m. West Tip, north side of Horn Island. "Where did you guys launch from?" We launched the boats yesterday evening and left from here this morning." Then she said, "Nolan's dad is at the house to pick up the key." And then we know that situation. Wait, let me see. "Hey, Miss Christine, just wanted to check in. We went out this morning to look, and I've been on and off the phone with Jackson County Sheriff's Office today. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out." She said, "Thank you." And then he said, "We are praying for your family." And she said, "We appreciate it." And then she texted again, "What was the make and model of the boat you guys were on?" He said, "Nolan went out on a 22 Triton offshore. I was on a 24 Tide Line on the way out. We were on separate boats. I went back on the Triton DMR and Sheriff's Office has all this information also. 1 minute after getting off the call with the Coast Guard, Warren called Christine again to inform her. He spoke to them and they were notified. He also told her details about where the group was on the island, where they last saw Nolan, and other relevant information. 12:25, Warren received a call from a local member of the Coast Guard to get more information about Nolan and his last known location. Warren again willingly provided them all the information he had. And again, he shows screenshots of outgoing call at 11:35, incoming call at 12:25. The count: two calls to Christine, two times speaking with the Coast Guard. But it gets better, Al, because at 1 a.m. on the dot, Christine and Warren talked for a third time, but this time Christine called Warren. She told him that the Jackson County Sheriff's Department would be calling him so he could give them more information. Warren agreed and spoke with a deputy or investigator on another individual's phone. Why did they call somebody else's phone if it sounds like she told him that Jackson County Sheriff's Department was going to be calling Warren? That's also strange. I'm sure you can agree, Al, that if you had just committed a heinous and infamous crime on the island, calling and texting the victim's mother, calling the fine men and women of the Coast Guard with their marine investigative expertise, and then speaking to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department would be some of the dumbest moves you could possibly make. This is actually not true at all. Anybody that is a true crime fanatic knows that there have been plenty of times when the person that did it has kind of kept the victim's loved ones in their orbit because they want to see how much they know. So, not a good defense, Mr. Scarface lawyer. Later, just after midnight on July 5th, Javon Williams' mother. Ooh, this is another thing I wanted to talk about, y'all. So, there's another boy that is a friend of Nolan, and his mom is friends with Nolan's mom. I'm not sure if his name is pronounced Javon or Javon, so sorry if I pronounce it wrong. But there's been a lot of reading between the lines in this case, and something that is somewhat concerning to me is Javon's safety because I feel like I don't want to be accusatory in how I say this, but the fact that there were admittedly, according to this letter, 27 people between all three boats, and no one has said anything. I think it was the governor or the mayor was blatantly threatening Nancy Grace over the weekend. Um, I don't know. I worry about Javon's safety. I do worry that he's being pressured to not speak up. The same with his mom. She's made some comments too, like nobody's going to touch my son. And the reading between the lines in what we do know about this case kind of paints a picture of what is going on in the community. And I do think that there may be some social pressure to keep your mouth shut. So I hope Javon is okay. And I hope that, honestly, I hope all these people move out of Mississippi when this is over because I just couldn't feel safe living around an entire town of people where no one is talking. No one is sharing their security camera footage. No one is sharing pictures from the day. No one is sharing text messages. And then the pictures that we do have are so grainy and so crappy. Nobody has a new iPhone. I don't believe that. They say this is an affluent community. I don't believe no one has a new iPhone. My iPhone, the 3x zoom is amazing. Like I can zoom and see details on trees. So I just find it very hard to believe that these are the best pictures that could come out of July 4th on Horn Island. So back to this letter. So let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, so this is when the group arrived just after midnight on July 5th. Javon Williams' mother arrived at Jax's house unannounced with a group of people, most of whom were unknown to Warren, Jackson, and Morgan. These individuals let themselves into the house without permission, demanding Nolan's cell phone and his whereabouts. Jax's parents were not at home. That, again, reading between the lines, why would they show up with that energy? That says a lot without saying much. They were suspicious. They didn't trust the limited information that they were being given. They didn't feel like this group was being forthcoming with information. They felt like they were hiding something. They felt like they had to go back and forth and pull teeth to get straight answers. I understand it. A female friend retrieved Nolan's phone from Wyatt's truck and handed it to Javon's mother without incident or delay. That is also not true. We have heard from Javon's mother and we've heard from Nolan's father that when they tried to get the phone, there was a little bit of back and forth. At first, they said they didn't know where it was. And then I think it was someone, it was a girl, but she stepped up and said, or no, that was the keys. The phone was, I think it was in the truck. I think it was in Wyatt's truck. Javon's mom said in her interviews that it took them like 15 minutes to go get the phone out of the truck. So that is not true that they handed the phone to his mother without incident or delay. At no time did Warren, Jax, or Morgan so much as touch Nolan's phone. Irrelevant. At no time did they have actual possession of Nolan's phone. At no time did they have constructive possession of Nolan's phone. At no time did they access or breach his phone. At no time did they alter, delete, modify, or erase any data or information on Nolan's phone, allegedly. Then, after 2:24 a.m. on July 5th, Nolan's stepfather, why do they, that's another thing I think is strange. Why do they keep calling his dad his stepfather? As far as we know, that's his dad. It's very strange that they keep, this is not the first time that I've noticed this. It's not the second time either. On one of the Tatum interviews, one of the boys, he kind of said it like under his breath. He was like, Nolan's dad. And he was like, oh, stepfather. Like, as if to say that wasn't his father, which is irrelevant at this point. But why keep bringing that up? Elmore Wansley came to Jax's house and asked Jax whether he had possession of Nolan's keys. Nolan spent the night at Jax's house on July 3rd into early 4th, around 15 to 20 other people. He even slept in Jax's bed, with Jax having to find another place to sleep. After searching throughout the residence, Jax was unable to immediately locate Nolan's keys because Nolan hadn't told Jax where he left them. Another individual who was with Elmore had to text the same female friend who handed the phone to Javon's mother. So it was the same person. That's why I kept getting it mixed up. So the same girl handed the phone to Javon's mother to find out where Nolan left his keys. Turned out he left the keys on top of a video game console in Jax's bedroom. Jax immediately handed the keys over to Nolan's stepfather. But Elmore wasn't alone. There was a group of other individuals with him. This is another thing. So everyone has kind of corroborated that there was like a large group of people. I don't know if it was between like maybe 10 and 15 people. We know that two of those people were Nolan's dad, Javon's mom, Javon, and then who are the other, what is that, 10, 12 people? I'm curious who they were. I'm also curious why they haven't said anything, why they haven't given their account of what happened, why nothing has been leaked. This just kind of goes back to this underlying feeling I have of socially in that town, people are being pressured to stay quiet, which has me concerned for their safety. There's a group of other individuals with him. After giving Nolan's key, the group with him refused to leave the property, even when asked to leave by Jax and his brother. This is another thing, again, reading between the lines. If your friend is missing and his family shows up looking for him and you are forcing them to leave your house, why wouldn't you invite them in, offer them something to drink, talk about what information you know, compare notes, and try to figure out what happened to him? It's very, very suspicious to me that you would treat your brother's family this way. And then I think he even called the cops on them. Why were they so hostile towards Nolan's dad and his family when they just wanted to know what happened to their son? I see why the family showed up angry and went into the house without permission. They were pissed and their spidey senses were tingling. Something was not right. And this letter, even though I think that it's meant to exonerate the three boys, is actually making them look even worse. Yeah, the group became disruptive after refusing to leave repeatedly. Jackson and his brother finally had to call 911. And then it says they called 911 at 2:57, and there's a screenshot of a 1 minute 911 call. That's just crazy to me. I cannot believe they called 911 on the family of someone that was reported missing a couple hours ago. Crazy moves. Once the Ocean Springs Police Department arrived, the group finally left the property, and Jackson and his brother told police about Nolan not returning. They told officers truthfully no one had seen him, and the unruly group that came to their house to locate Nolan's keys and demand answers. The next day, approximately 10:30 a.m. on July 5th, Warren, together with Katie Hudson Seymour, David Seymour, Brooks Edmiston, and Jax returned to Horn Island by boat to search for Nolan. It's another thing. In the press conferences, like right after it happened, Nolan's dad said that he didn't go out to the island to look for his son that night because he didn't have friends with boats. That's another thing. They had at least three boats between the group of why wouldn't you offer to take his dad out to look for him? Why wouldn't you want to go out to look for him? Again, reading between the lines. Let's continue. There is a picture, another picture of Nolan looking happy with all of his so called friends, but it's taken at nighttime. So I don't think it's relevant to the 4th of July because if he was last seen at 3 or 4:30, it was still light outside. This picture is also taken on a sidewalk in front of cars, so clearly not on Horn Island, irrelevant. At the bottom of this page, our professional attorney says, "You are confident that you are untouchable, but you're about to discover you are quite wrong and that you're not above the law." That sounds like a threat. I really think that he watched too many mob movies growing up. You can't talk to people like that. I mean, you can, but there will be consequences. And the consequence is Al Sharpton already responded and said, go for it. I skipped some of it, but then we'll go to this paragraph. But you didn't visit the island, pictured above with very light cloud cover in contrast to July 4th, where there was virtually no cloud cover. If you did, you would have known that thousands of people present during daylight hours on Independence Day. Your belief that an unwitnessed murder occurred under a bright sun and cloudless sky is not only fundamentally incorrect with the facts said above, but also implausible given the environmental dynamic. No one's saying that there was a murder. I don't think anyone has been accused of there being a murder because, yeah, it's correct. There's no evidence that a murder occurred. The question is what happened? Was it an accidental drowning? Was it an accident of another kind? Was there a fight? That would explain the bruising on the back of Nolan's head. I personally do not want to believe that this group of young adults was barbaric descendants of clan members because I mean, I just don't like to think that there are people that are that mean spirited in the world. And I just would hope to God that that is not what happened to Nolan. But I lean more towards there was some kind of an accident. They're young, they freaked out, they didn't know what to do, they covered it up. But we don't know. And that is the whole point of there being an investigation, which there was none. His death was immediately ruled accidental, no foul play. There was no investigation. There was no questioning of the 27 people that were on their three boats. Cell phone records, there was no collection of evidence. There was no questioning of all of the other people that were there that day. There was no honest tip line to submit pictures. We really haven't seen much of anything, which in this day and age of everything being documented on social media, it's just strange that there are not more pictures of not even Nolan that day, but just people there, period. We haven't seen anything. And to me, that's just, it's weird and it reeks of a cover up. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to go too much into the specifics of this defamation case and what is and what isn't defamation and the laws in Mississippi. It goes on to say in Mississippi, false statements, whether written or spoken, which tends to injure one's reputation and thereby expose them to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule, which you guys got Nolan's mom reported to like the medical board. Is that not public hatred, contempt, or ridicule? And why is it okay for her to be threatened, but these three boys that you represent, who are not being threatened, by the way, they're just being questioned. People just want to know what happened. Why is it okay for her to be threatened, but not them? Why is it defamation? Here, your statements create an effect on the listener that asserts Warren Jackson Morgan were colluding to hide evidence and or obstruct the efforts to find Nolan at the very least, and that they murdered Nolan at the very worst. Again, no one is accusing anyone of murder. I think people just want more information. Like, we just want to know what happened. We want to see more pictures. We want to see what I really want to see is the GPS data for all of the boats that were in that group because we've seen GPS data for the one boat. I think it's the Triton um, that the CETO call was made from, but I would also be curious to see the GPS data for the other two boats that were in that group. And actually, there might even be a fourth. I found a website that is kind of similar to like FlightAware for airplanes, but basically the equivalent for boats. And I need to go back and look at that. But if you know of any similar information, I feel like it has to be public record, but maybe not. I'm not really sure. But I would love to see the GPS data for all three or four of the boats from that day and then the 2 days following because I think the body was placed there on the 6th. And so I would like to see the GPS records for all of the boats. Wording in this letter is all just like so inflammatory and so aggressive, and the overall tone that this attorney has taken is just, it doesn't sit well with me. And it really makes me wonder, in the town of Ocean Springs and other cities and small towns in the South, like how often does this kind of stuff happen and get brushed under the rug? Then he goes on to say, so here's the deal, Al. Like, who? This is so unprofessional. Warren Jackson Morgan hereby formally demand that you apologize for, retract, and delete every false and defamatory statement about them, including but not limited to those specifically identified in this correspondence. As a quote unquote reverend, we would hope that you see the need for repentance. This lawyer has turned this entire case into an absolute clown show. I really think he's done more harm for his clients than good at this point. Specifically, Warren Jackson Morgan demand that you apologize publicly, cease further publication or republication of your false and defamatory statements. Like, this to me sounds like, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but this to me, it sounds very threatening. Provide us with written confirmation identifying each corrective action taken. Like, who do you think you're talking to? The nerve, the absolute nerve. Publish the apologies and retractions in the same manner. They really sent a list of demands to a lawyer that is trying to get answer for a grieving family. If that doesn't say everything that you need to know about their motives, I really don't know what to tell you. Preservation of evidence. In contemplation of litigation, you are further instructed to preserve all documents, electronically stored information, and tangible materials relating in any way to Warren Jackson Morgan, the underlying incident, or your publications concerning them. This preservation obligation includes without limitation. And then he goes on to say text message, research materials, notes, screenshots, social media analysis. No. If we do not hear from you or your attorney within 10 days of the date you are served with this letter, we will assume that you are not interested in resolving this matter without litigation and will proceed accordingly. Conclusion. And so, Al, in conclusion, you asked for it and now you got it. Who talks like this? What a joke. This is such a joke. Be careful what you wish for. Is that not a threat? Your days of rolling into peaceful towns like Ocean Springs with false accusations of racism for political gain and photo opportunities are over. The good folks of the Mississippi Gulf Coast do not want you to give us a sanctimonious and unwarranted history lesson. We don't want you insinuating we're backward racist and roaches. Oh my. We don't want you trashing our brave and dedicated men and women in law enforcement. And most importantly, the good folks of Mississippi Gulf Coast do not want you or your divisive lies, Al Sharpton. Should you not apologize, retract, and delete your defamatory statements within 10 days of the date you are served in this letter, litigation will become necessary. We look forward to your most sincere apology. Be guided accordingly. And it's signed Edward Andrew Palcic, Esquire, and J. Tyler Cox, Esquire, counsel to Warren Jacks and Morgan. And that is a full 19-page letter. That was absolutely unhinged. So yeah, I'd like to know, have you read the letter? Have you been keeping up the case? What are your thoughts about this? Oh, I actually had some other things that I wanted to look at too. And in response to that 19-page letter, the lawyers wrote the letter. It was dated August 21st, which was this past Friday. They said that Al Sharpton has 10 days to respond. And Al Sharpton responded over the weekend and he said, cool, go for it. And I think that that says a lot about both of them and the way that they are handling this. Al Sharpton he's been doing this longer than both of those attorneys have been alive, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly how old they are, but they look like they're probably mid 40s. Al Sharpton has been around for a lot longer, so it's just very presumptuous for them to think that it was okay to basically threaten him with a lawsuit if he doesn't apologize. Like, wow. So that's my thoughts on this 19-page letter. What stood out to you? What are your thoughts? What do you think happened? I don't want to. No, I do. I'm so curious about what actually happened to Nolan Wells that day. My heart goes out to his family. I hope that they get justice. I pray that they get justice. I don't think that anyone should ever have to. I think it's really disappointing and downright evil that anyone would think it's okay to attack a family that is mourning the loss of their son while they are just trying to find answers. They just want to know what happened to Nolan. And it's also bigger than Nolan. There have been, I don't even know how many other cases of people that have died under mysterious causes and their deaths have not been properly investigated. They've just been closed and brushed under the rug. And so I want to see justice for Nolan, and I want to see justice for all of these other people that this has happened to. Yeah, it has to stop. It's crazy to me that this country is still that racist and hateful towards Black people, because I think we're pretty amazing. Whew, that was a lot. So, what are your thoughts on the 19-page letter from the two attorneys representing three of the boys that were on Horn Island the day that Nolan Wells went missing? Let me know in the comments. I would love to talk about this case. If there's any other creators that you think I would be interested in, or any other interesting angles or analysis, I would love to check them out. I kind of want to put together my own timeline. Maybe I'll do that in part two. Until next time.